Rub-a-dub-dub, Psychedelic in the tub. Psychedelic here. Acid Archive Diaries, number 46. We're slowly creeping through the 40s here. About to await the big 5-0. I wonder what that'll be. Maybe I could do like 50 Acid Archive titles in one video. Like a record per minute or something. I may not be able to achieve that, but regardless, we are here to highlight a singular record, and this one's been kind of on my mind for a while lately. Just did a live stream a couple weeks ago where I played the full length. It seems like you guys enjoyed that. Today we're going to be talking about Troyka, self-titled from 1970. This is on the Cotillion label, subsidiary of Atlantic Records. And yeah, when I first initially shared this record about 3 years ago now, that was when I picked it up, and it's the original copy. I think I may have misspoke or had a little muddled information, some 411 for you. So I'm going to kind of clear up as much as I can. Still might get a few, maybe get the timeline a little off, but I did a little reading, up online on some blog posts and interview with a band member. I'm just going to do my best here with what I know. Kind of a group that originates from back in the early 60s when they formed as the Royal Family. At least one or two of the members came from that group from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And I guess there wasn't much of a music scene back in the day, other than, maybe some of the arts were heralded, but music not so much. And I mean, as opposed to like some other big cities around around Canada. So they got their start in the early 60s, producing like at least a couple singles under the Royal Family, like in the mid 60s. And of course, naturally, like any other band around this time, get inspired by the Beatles, of course. And they did the whole mop top, dressing up, the Beatle boots, the works, right? And so I guess they got some airplay, like some national airplay a little bit with some of their singles. And I don't know what those fetch for. I'm not even very familiar with those singles. I just know them from just some of the back history, some of the clips I've heard online. And I guess one of the singles was comped on a garage site compilation. So most certainly coming from a garage pop aspect from the beginning. Shortly after, the Royal Family was kind of, almost at the point of wanting to desire something else in their career. They were shopping around some different labels to see if they can get an LP deal around 67, 68, and nothing really fell through. And that's when they kind of split up and some band members came and left. And that's when eventually they became a three-piece here with Troyka. And I guess their name Troyka, too, also originates from what you call like three horses pulling a sled. It's like the Russian translation, I guess, Troyka. And why they're called that, or why it's in Russian, you may ask, is because they have a mixed Eastern European descent, or ancestry here. Kind of a mixed breed, these guys are. So there's like a mixture of like Slavic, Ukrainian, Polish, Russian. It's like all in there. They had built this 8-track studio in this recording shack of theirs and recorded all these demos, these acetates, kind of a DIY recording studio they had set up. And once they pressed an acetate or, master tape, whatever it was, reel to reel, they sent it out to some different labels shopping around. And I guess got in touch with Atlantic Records through Cotillion. It's one of the head guys from there. I think it's the producer here, Shel Kagan, which they actually shot at in the back of his house here during the winter time. He was actually the photographer too behind these photos here. You can kind of tell they're not necessarily professionally done. It's almost like an old Polaroid that they took with all that grain and that blur in there. But so Shel, he was responding to one of their tracks, Natural. And he's like, I got to find out who this is. And got in contact with one of the guys here. I think it was maybe Robert Edwards. And they flew out, or they drove out to their studio and wanted to hear a little bit more what they were about, see if they could actually jam or play some tracks. So they played Rolling Down the Back Road for him. I guess it was supposedly all in one take, according to the band member. And they showed them their chops, man. And when you listen to this, it does kind of have a primal sound to it. And you can definitely tell where some of the overdubs may have dropped in eventually once it got remixed in New York City. through Cotillion, because this was like cut all live in the studio, uh, all like within one live take. And yeah, some of that does reflect a little bit on the recording, but otherwise, some of the crisp guitar sounds sound pretty cool on here. Some of the bass work as well, and some of the just really frantic drum work that happens occasionally, and some of the gruff, crazed kind of vocals really do push through. So I think maybe we can start talking about some of the songs here. So side 1 and 2 both open up with this sort of reoccurring Slavic classical guitar piece with some like really like Gregorian chant kind of touches in the vocals. And then you got a track like Natural. Kind of reminds me of like maybe Captain Beefheart meets Edgar Broughton Band. It's got that kind of grimy, dirty feel to it. And lyrically too, I don't know what they're all talking about, but you can definitely pick up on there's some like sex fiend sort of themes happening within these tracks. And then it does like a total 180 with you on the third track, Early Morning. It's an instrumental, very cosmic, kind of beautiful psych folk kind of piece. It kind of feels out of place a little bit with the way the track listing is flowing with the consistency. And then switching it back to another instrumental called Life's Okay. I featured that in a Psychedelic Trip once before. And it's just kind of an instrumental jam. It just takes place, you know, kind of chugging along, building up some momentum, and then gets kind of frantic, and a lot of fuzz wah guitar, a lot of just manic soloing going on. And you got a track called Burning of the Witch, kind of brings you back to some more vocal driven stuff here that we heard in Natural. Again, kind of a cryptic lyrics happening within, talking about burning a witch at the stake, Renaissance era kind of touches, and some really heavy guitar licks. But yet kind of a very stone age man, kind of caveman rock kind of feel. Just to flip it around with a track called Rub-a-Dub-Dub, Troyka in the Tub, which I think they might be recalling like a Yardbirds jam. It's a very bluesy, nothing to take too seriously. They're just kind of having silly playtime. And then ending, of course, with the Troyka Lament, bringing back that classical guitar piece. And then Troyka Solo, filling in the gap on side 2, opening up. And again, the track rolling down the back road. It's like a semi-vocal, semi-instrumental piece. I think there might be some like minimal vocal delay on there. Maybe that was like some of the extra touches that some of the Cotillion executives brought to the project. It's got some really manic, really bashing backbeat kind of drum set going on, bashing cymbals, and just like really fiery kind of solo playing on that one in particular. After that, you have a track called Berry Picking. Pretty similar compared to the last one, except it's just very much upbeat. Again, they kind of bring back those sort of underlying sexual lyrics within the track. It's very caveman, it's very grimy kind of sounding in the vocals. And I guess it's deliberately done too by the lead vocalist, Mike Richards. Said he just kind of brought that to the table saying, well, we got to get their attention somehow. Followed up by a track called Dear Margaret, Malgosia. I think that's the one track where they do use some like Polish spoken word. It's kind of quietly in the mix, but you can definitely pick up on that if you're listening intently. Followed up with another instrumental jam to close us out on, Go East Young Man, Beautiful Pink Eyes. It's like 2 different instrumental jams on here. Some of that reminds me, I think it's the second half of the track, Beautiful Pink Eyes, reminds me of sort of krautrockian, almost has like a Can feel. The way the backbeat, Liebeslied kind of style, and some of the funky guitar playing too. It kind of grooves along, and it lasts about 6 minutes in total. And it's just a very memorable, awesome way to trail out this record. And so you have Mike Richards, lead vocals, drum percussion. Yeah, the percussionist does the lead vocals. Robert Edwards, guitars, mandolin, vocals. Yes, the mandolin is what's being played in the reoccurring themes. And then Rumar Lugawitsky, who I think goes by Ron here on the back. It's kind of strange too. I guess they were getting kind of promotion, which you didn't. I mean, of a group of all groups, you're promoting this group to the top in the same ilks as like Led Zeppelin, Vanilla Fudge. They were getting mentioned side by side with some of these groups in like some of the music zines. Maybe not the New York Times, but something similar to that, where people were picking up on these upcoming hip groups, you know. And eventually they were opening up with groups like the Byrds around this time. They played a show with Blue Cheer, Mountain, Savoy Brown. So they definitely had gotten around after their initial album release. And I guess, according to some reports, their live shows were pretty entertaining. I guess one of the guys was doing backflips on stage and doing all these different tricks in between sets or something. Would have been a sight to see. I mean, we get some wild shows these days, but doing it back then, I would think it kind of stunned people. At least you could tell these guys had a little bit of a sense of humor and kind of knew what they were doing at the end of the day. And yeah, it's reported that they never did indulge in any drugs, weren't really even boozing either, which is kind of a shocker when you listen to this, but I guess they're just putting on this persona. Like I mentioned earlier, Edgar Broughton Band comes to mind. Maybe like a pinch of like Wilkinson Tricycle in here, some of the things that they're doing. But overall, yeah, it's kind of more of like a, I guess, heavy psych, hard rock kind of flavor going on here, but mixing a lot of these, like, again, Ukrainian, Slavic tendencies with the classical guitar and some of the lyrics and some of the just nuances that you pick up while listening to it. Kind of gives you a clearer picture of what's going on. But yeah, Shel Kagan was a fan of the group. It's getting quite scarce. I mean, when I was picking this up, you can still kind of find copies lingering between like 50, 70 bucks. But anymore, I think people are trying to get about 100 out of this. It's a stock copy here. And I think I mentioned it in my Chicago video. Spotted a promo copy, white label promo, which would be kind of cool to own. But this will get the job done. And I think we're kind of ready to move on to the book and see what I missed. All right, I got this bookmarked. I found my free jazz bookmark. My goodness. Okay, Troyka, Edmonton, Canada. Says it's on Cotillion. White label promo exists, and this gets a 1 rarity at the time. Could probably bump that up to a 2 rarity. And then it says at the time, 2004. I'm guessing it's a CD. Eero Progresso 005. And I think since then, there's not really been, there may have been like one official reissue. I think it's like through Real Gone Music, published one of the CDs. I don't think there's been a vinyl reissue though. Okay, it says here, a wonderful, distinctive album that follows none of the rules and is better for it. About half the songs are instrumentals built around catchy, hypnotic patterns. Despite being a power trio, they have surprising musical grace and dexterity. The songs with vocals are much heavier, and the singer, mostly grunts and growls, making for some pretty wild stuff. It really feels like a big goof. There's not a single serious lyric on the album, which is pretty true, but somehow it works as a mix of psychotic pre-punk zaniness and anti-prog instrumental creativity. A lot of albums have 1 or 2 throwaway tracks that have an engaging looseness and somehow are more enjoyable than the real songs. Here's an entire album of those songs. The music was recorded at the band's own 8-track studio, unusual for a major label, that's for sure. Kind of makes me think of like, well, I don't think it was a home studio, but I'm thinking of like the album The Children Rebirth album. It was on a small label and picked up by a major label, then professionally remixed for the release. The Canadian stock pressing has a red label, while the US is lime green. It's almost like a floor tile kind of looking, the Cotillion label. The 3 band members came from East European immigrant families, hence the name, and recorded 2 unreleased albums after this debut. So, yep, I was on the money with that one. I think you guys will enjoy it. And if you think bluesy hard rock is not going to be your thing, I mean, they do a couple things like that, but it's fun zaniness. It's a little out there. You know, they're throwing a lot of humor in, quite eccentric in a lot of ways. But there's also some like beautiful, you know, kind of folk touches here. I think you can get a sense of that they're pretty good players, even with all this going on. If I had to recommend like the top 3 tracks on here, maybe Burning of the Witch, I would listen to Rolling Down the Back Road, and then Go East, Young Man, Beautiful Pink Eyes. But A lot of good highlights on here. I wouldn't say there's really much of a dud on here. Could almost do with without the reoccurring themes. Definitely of its time, and an interesting title, Troyka, 1970. And that'll do it for now. Thanks again for joining me. And I don't know what's going to come next. I think I might have enough to do maybe some local finds, local mixed with online purchases, because I'm not doing a lot of either, either or. It's been kind of dry online, not finding too much I'm looking at, and then some of the shops have been kind of drying up too, but that could all change. And I do have to, of course, talk about the stuff I picked up in South Dakota yet. Might actually do that next. That's Archive Diaries. Take care, and we'll see you down the back road.